The bear trap's iron jaws had claimed another victim, but this time it wasn't cattle. Callum McGraw knelt in the morning frost, his weathered hands working frantically at the metal mechanism that held a young native woman prisoner. Blood stained the snow beneath her leg. Her dark eyes flickered between consciousness and shadow. "Pa, is she gonna die?" Finn's voice carried the weight of a boy who had already lost too much. Callum didn't answer. His fingers found the trap's release spring. The woman's breathing came in short gasps. When the jaws finally opened, she bit back a cry that would have echoed across the Wyoming Valley. War cries drifted through the pine trees, distant but growing closer. The woman's eyes opened fully. She studied Callum's face with the intensity of someone measuring a stranger's soul. Her English came broken but clear. "You must hide me." From who? From everyone. She fell unconscious before Callum could ask more. Finn's horse stamped nervously as the war cries grew louder. The morning air carried smoke from multiple camps, search parties, all looking for something, or someone. Callum lifted the woman carefully. Her buckskin dress bore intricate beadwork that spoke of high station among her people. This wasn't just any tribal member caught in his trap. This was someone important enough to send warriors into the hills. The ride back to the ranch stretched longer than usual. Every shadow between the trees could hide watching eyes. Every bird's call might mask a signal. Finn rode close to his father's side, understanding without words that their world had shifted in the space of a morning. The McGraw Ranch sat in a valley carved by wind and stubbornness. Callum had built it with his late wife Sarah, board by board, fence post by fence post. 3 years since consumption took her. 3 years of raising Finn alone while fighting the land for every head of cattle, every acre of grass. Recent weeks had brought new troubles. Cattle disappearing in the night. Hoofprints that could belong to anyone. Neighbors whispering about Indian raids. The territorial government promising military intervention that never came. Inside the ranch house, Callum laid the woman on Sarah's old bed. The room still held traces of lavender soap and pressed wildflowers. Finn fetched water and clean cloth without being asked. The boy moved with the careful efficiency of someone who had helped tend wounds before. The woman's leg bore deep punctures but no broken bones. Callum cleaned and wrapped the wounds while she remained unconscious. Her face held a peaceful strength that reminded him of Sarah in sleep. Different features, different heritage, but the same quality of someone who faced the world without flinching. Hoofbeats approached the house. Callum moved to the window and saw Brutus Kane riding hard across the valley floor. Kane's horse lathered with sweat despite the cool morning. The man's face carried news he was eager to share. Callum met Kane at the porch. Behind him, Finn appeared in the doorway, blocking any view into the house. "McGraw, there's trouble brewing." Kane's eyes scanned the ranch buildings. "Chief Red Hawk's daughter has gone missing. War parties from both the Sky River and Crow tribes are combing every valley between here and the territorial line." "Missing how?" "Disappeared during some kind of ceremony yesterday. Both tribes think we settlers took her. They're ready to paint their faces and start counting scalps." Kane's horse shifted beneath him. The animal sensed its rider's nervous energy. Kane had been pushing for military action against the tribe since spring. This kind of crisis played directly into his hands. "You seen anything unusual?" Kane's question carried the weight of suspicion. "Nothing." The lie came easier than Callum expected. "Search party's been through your northern pastures." "Haven't seen any." Kane studied Callum's face. 20 years of neighboring had taught each man to read the other's moods. Something in Callum's stillness didn't match the morning's urgency. "This could be the excuse the territorial government needs," Kane said. "Send in the cavalry, clear out the tribes once and for all, make this country safe for civilized folk. Might be it could also start a war we're not ready to fight." "We're never ready, McGraw. That's why we stay ready." Kane rode away, leaving dust and unspoken threats. Callum watched until the man disappeared over the ridge. Finn stepped onto the porch. "Is she really a princess, Pa?" "Don't know what she is yet." Inside, the woman had awakened. She sat propped against the headboard, testing the strength in her injured leg. Her dark hair fell in braids decorated with small silver ornaments. When she saw Callum, her expression remained guarded but grateful. "I am Tala, daughter of Chief Red Hawk of the Sky River people." Finn's eyes widened. A real princess in their house, in his mother's bed. The boy moved closer despite Callum's warning gesture. "Why were you running?" Callum asked. Tala's jaw tightened. "I was to be married, to unite our tribe with the Crow people, but I discovered something that would destroy my people if the marriage happened." "What kind of something?" "My intended husband, Standing Bear, has been meeting with white men, railroad men. They have offered him money for our sacred lands. The marriage would give him the authority to make such deals." The war cries had faded, but smoke still rose from the distant camps, both tribes searching for the missing princess, both growing more convinced with each empty valley that the settlers had taken her. "If you don't return, they'll blame us," Callum said. "If I return and marry, my people lose everything. Their hunting grounds, their burial places, everything that makes them who they are." Finn sat on the edge of the bed, his young face serious with the weight of adult problems. "Can't you just tell your father the truth? Standing Bear has many supporters, warriors who believe cooperation with the railroad is our only chance for survival. Without proof, my word means nothing against his." Outside, more hoofbeats approached, this time multiple riders. Callum moved to the window and counted 6 horses, all carrying men he recognized from neighboring ranches. Kane rode at their head. "Hide," Callum told Tala. She slipped from the bed, testing her injured leg. Finn guided her to the root cellar beneath the kitchen floor. The hiding place had served them well during cattle raids. Now it would conceal a princess whose presence could start a war or prevent one. The men gathered in Callum's yard carried rifles and grim expressions. Kane dismounted and approached the porch. "McGraw, we're forming a patrol, every ranch between here and the territorial line. Make sure no war parties catch us scattered and alone. I'll stay with my property. This isn't a request. Every able man rides with us, or we assume he's got reason to stay behind. Reason that might not sit well with his neighbors." The threat hung in the air like morning frost. Callum looked at the faces of men he had known for years. Fear had transformed them into something harder and less familiar. "Give me time to saddle up." Inside the house, Finn knelt by the cellar entrance. His whispered conversation with Tala stopped when his father approached. "Stay hidden until we return," Callum told her. "Finn knows where everything is if you need food or water. And if you don't return, then you'll have to decide for yourself whether your people's freedom is worth a war." Callum rode out with Kane's patrol, leaving his son to guard a secret that could save or damn them all. The morning sun climbed higher, burning off the frost and revealing the clear, unforgiving day ahead. Dawn painted the eastern ridge in shades of copper and gold. Callum returned from Kane's patrol to find something that stopped his heart. 6 horses stood in his yard, war ponies painted for ceremony, not battle. Their riders sat motionless as carved stone. Chief Red Hawk waited on the porch. The man's presence filled the space without effort. Silver hair braided with eagle feathers. A face that had weathered decades of decisions that saved or buried his people. His eyes held the quiet authority of someone who spoke softly because others listened. Finn stood beside the chief. The boy's face showed no fear, only the careful respect Sarah had taught him for any guest under their roof. "Mr. McGraw." The chief's English carried the formal precision of treaty negotiations. "We need to talk." Callum dismounted slowly. His rifle remained in its saddle holster. The gesture did not go unnoticed by the warriors in his yard. "About what?" "About my daughter. The one you pulled from your bear trap yesterday morning." The words hung in the morning air. No accusations, no threats, just a father acknowledging what they both knew to be true. "She's safe." "I know. That's why I'm here." Chief Red Hawk moved to the edge of the porch. His moccasins made no sound on the weathered boards. 20 years I've watched you work this land. You've never cheated my people in trade, never broken your word. Never taken what wasn't freely given. Callum waited. The chief's words carried the weight of something larger than morning conversation. Yesterday, you found my daughter bleeding in a trap meant for thieves. You could have left her, could have turned her over to your neighbors for reward, could have used her as bargaining for your stolen cattle. Any decent man would have done the same. No, any decent man would have done what seemed safest for his family. You did what was right regardless of cost. The chief stepped down from the porch. His warriors remained mounted, but their hands moved away from weapons. The gesture spoke of respect, not surrender. I need help, McGraw. From a man who can walk between our worlds without betraying either. What kind of help? The kind that prevents a war neither of us can win. Inside the house, Tala emerged from the cellar with Finn's assistance. Her injured leg bore fresh bandages. Her dark hair was rebraided with care that spoke of the boy's gentle attention. She moved with the controlled grace of someone accustomed to hiding pain. Chief Red Hawk embraced his daughter without words. The reunion held 3 years of worry compressed into a single moment. When he pulled back, his eyes examined her face for signs of mistreatment. He found none. "Tell him what you told me," Tala said. Her father's jaw tightened. "Standing Bear has been meeting with railroad men in secret. They've offered him money for hunting grounds that belong to all our people. The marriage ceremony would give him authority to negotiate such deals. You have proof." "My daughter's word. In our culture, that would be enough. In yours, it means nothing without papers and witnesses." Callum understood. The territorial government would demand evidence that satisfied white legal standards. Accusations without documentation would be dismissed as tribal politics. "What do you need from me?" "Help us gather proof before the deadline Standing Bear has set. 3 days to return Tala, or he considers her kidnapped by settlers. When that happens, both tribes go to war with your people." Tala spoke quietly. "The railroad men have been surveying our sacred places, taking measurements, making maps. If we can find their documents, we can expose the conspiracy." Finn tugged at his father's sleeve. "Pa, I know where they've been working, up in Eagle's Rest Canyon. Saw them there last week when I was hunting rabbits." The child's words carried the weight of solution. Eagle's Rest Canyon lay on disputed ground between tribal territory and settler claims. Perfect location for secret meetings and hidden activities. "It's dangerous," Callum said. "More dangerous to let this war start," Chief Red Hawk replied. They planned through the morning. Tala would guide them to places where Standing Bear might meet with the railroad men. Her knowledge of tribal politics would help identify which warriors could be trusted and which had been bought. Chief Red Hawk would provide security and legitimacy if they encountered other tribal members. Callum would serve as translator and witness. His word carried weight with territorial authorities. His presence would also prevent the expedition from being dismissed as purely tribal affair. The partnership felt fragile as morning frost. Cultural differences threatened to undermine every decision. Tala insisted on riding despite her injury. Chief Red Hawk wanted to bring more warriors for protection. Callum worried about leaving Finn alone with tensions rising throughout the valley. "The boy comes with us," the chief decided. "Safer than leaving him here if Kane's patrol returns." They rode out as the sun reached its peak. 4 unlikely allies bound by necessity, and the shared understanding that failure meant blood on ground that had seen too much already. Eagle's Rest Canyon cut deep into the foothills. Ancient waters had carved channels through stone that held petroglyphs older than memory. Sacred ground to the tribes. Valuable timber and mineral rights to the railroad. Fresh tracks marked the canyon floor. Boot prints that didn't belong to tribal moccasins. Horseshoes from animals grain-fed and well-shod. The expedition dismounted and followed the trail deeper into the canyon. Tala moved ahead with the silent grace of someone raised to read the land's secrets. Her injured leg showed no weakness as she navigated loose stone and hidden crevices. Finn stayed close to her side, absorbing lessons in tracking that no schoolbook could teach. They found the surveyor's camp in a side canyon hidden from casual observation. equipment covered by canvas tarps, stakes driven into ground marked with numbers and measurements. Maps weighted down by stones showed the full scope of the railroad's ambitions. The documents revealed plans extending far beyond Standing Bear's immediate territory. The railroad intended to claim hunting grounds belonging to 3 separate tribes. The marriage between Tala and Standing Bear was just the opening move in a larger strategy of land acquisition. Chief Red Hawk studied the papers with growing anger held under iron control. They planned to build tracks through our burial grounds, through places where our ancestors rest. Tala gathered the most damaging documents: maps showing sacred sites marked for development, contracts bearing Standing Bear's signature alongside railroad officials, payment records proving the conspiracy extended back months. Finn kept watch while the adults worked. His young eyes spotted movement on the canyon rim before anyone else noticed. Riders approaching from multiple directions, too many to be a casual patrol. "Someone's coming," he whispered. They packed the documents quickly. The evidence would prove the conspiracy, but only if they lived to present it. Chief Red Hawk counted the approaching riders, at least a dozen men, some in tribal dress, others in settler clothing. "Kane," Callum said. The rancher's voice carried across the canyon, directing his men to surround the area. "Standing Bear's warriors come from the north," Tala observed. They were trapped between 2 forces, each convinced the other represented mortal threat. The afternoon sun turned the canyon walls into furnaces that reflected heat and amplified sound. Every footstep echoed like thunder. Chief Red Hawk made a decision that revealed the depth of his trust in Callum. He handed over the documents they had gathered. "If something happens to us, these papers must reach the territorial authorities. You're the only one they'll believe." The sound of approaching horses grew louder. Kane's voice echoed off stone walls as he called for Callum to surrender whatever Indians he was harboring. Standing Bear's war cries answered from the opposite direction. Finn pressed close to Tala's side. The woman's hand found the boy's shoulder, offering comfort she probably didn't feel. Her father checked his rifle with movements economical and precise. Callum looked at the unlikely family that had formed around him in the space of 2 days. A widowed rancher, a tribal princess, a chief willing to risk everything for peace, a boy who had lost one mother and refused to lose another. The canyon walls seemed to close around them as the voices of their enemies grew closer. The evidence of Standing Bear's betrayal rested in Callum's saddlebags. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. The ambush came at sunset when the canyon walls turned blood red. Not Kane's patrol or Standing Bear's warriors, but men in dark coats who moved with the efficiency of hired killers. They struck the camp while Callum's group prepared to leave Eagle's Rest Canyon. Gunfire echoed off stone walls. Chief Red Hawk pushed Finn behind a boulder as bullets chipped rock inches from the boy's head. Tala rolled toward cover despite her injured leg. Her rifle spoke once, twice, driving back attackers who had underestimated a princess raised on war stories. Callum recognized the attack's true purpose when he saw men rifling through their supplies instead of pressing the assault. They wanted the documents, the evidence that could destroy Standing Bear's conspiracy and the railroad's plans. "There after the papers," he shouted to Chief Red Hawk. The chief's return fire covered Callum's movement toward the horses. The saddlebags held proof of betrayal that men would kill to suppress. But the attackers had anticipated his move. Flames erupted from the supply packs as someone threw a torch into their camp. Documents scattered on the wind. Maps and contracts curling into ash. Months of planning and conspiracy reduced to smoke and ember. The canyon floor danced with burning paper that carried their only hope of preventing war. One attacker broke from cover, making a desperate grab for Finn. The boy's scream cut through gunfire and brought Tala rising from behind her boulder. Her war cry echoed her father's as she charged the man threatening her adopted son. Chief Red Hawk's rifle cracked. The attacker fell, but the damage was done. In the chaos of protecting Finn, No one had saved the evidence they needed. The surviving attackers melted away into canyon shadows. Professional killers who had accomplished their mission and felt no need to press a fight that could only cost them men. Their horses disappeared over the rim as quickly as they had appeared. Smoke drifted through the canyon like fog. Ash settled on stone that had witnessed ceremonies older than memory. The sacred place bore new scars from a battle that should never have happened there. Finn sat shaking against the boulder, not from fear but from rage that burned hotter than the scattered fires. Tala knelt beside him, checking for wounds with hands that trembled despite her efforts at control. "They tried to take you," she whispered, "but they didn't." The boy's voice carried steel that reminded Callum of Sarah in her fierce moments. "They didn't take me, and they won't take you either." Chief Red Hawk surveyed the destruction with the stoic acceptance of a man who had lost battles before. His weathered hands gathered fragments of burned documents. Nothing remained that would convince territorial authorities or prevent the coming war. "Who were they?" Callum asked. "Railroad men. Hargrove's cleaners." The chief let ash fall through his fingers. "Standing Bear told them where to find us." The betrayal ran deeper than anyone had imagined. Not just land deals and broken promises, but active cooperation with forces that would see all tribal people driven from their homes. Standing Bear had become something worse than a sellout. He had become a weapon turned against his own blood. They rode back toward the ranch in defeated silence. The evening air carried smoke from their ambush and the scent of approaching storm. Dark clouds gathered over the mountains, promising rain that would wash away the last traces of their destroyed evidence. Kane's patrol intercepted them a mile from Callum's property. The rancher's face showed satisfaction that soured when he saw Chief Red Hawk riding openly beside his neighbor. Armed warriors following a white settler home stretched Kane's, understanding past its breaking point. "McGraw, what in blazes is going on here?" "Working out some problems. Problems that involve riding around with war parties. Problems that have the whole valley talking about your loyalties." Kane's men spread out in a loose line, not quite threatening but close enough to make intentions clear. Their rifles remained in saddle holsters but hands rested near the stocks. "Folks are saying you've been harboring Indians. Saying you know more about the missing princess than you let on." Kane's horse stepped sideways, blocking the path to Callum's ranch. "Some folks think that makes you a traitor to your own kind." Chief Red Hawk spoke quietly. "Your neighbor is a man of honor, more honor than you show by questioning his word. Indians don't get to judge white men's honor." The words hung in the cooling air. Finn urged his horse forward until he rode between Kane and Chief Red Hawk. 10 years old and placing himself in harm's way to defend people he had claimed as family. "Chief Red Hawk is my friend," the boy said. "Tala too. They're not Indians, they're people. Good people who helped us when we needed help." Kane's face darkened. "Boy, you're too young to understand what you're saying." "I understand plenty. I understand you're being mean to my friends for no good reason." Callum felt pride and terror warring in his chest. Pride at his son's courage, terror at the consequences that courage might bring. The valley had turned dangerous for anyone who challenged the accepted order of things. "Let us pass, Kane." "Can't do that, McGraw. Too many questions need answering. Too many neighbors worried about whose side you're really on." The confrontation stretched taut as fence wire in winter. Chief Red Hawk's warriors shifted in their saddles, reading the threat in Kane's posture. The settlers gripped their reins tighter, sensing violence approaching on the evening wind. Thunder rumbled over the mountains. The first drops of rain struck dusty ground, raising the scent of sage and possibility. Storm weather that could wash clean or tear apart everything in its path. Tala spoke for the first time since leaving the canyon. Her voice carried the authority of someone born to command. "Mr. Kane, your cattle have been disappearing. Stolen in the night and blamed on my people. Would you like to know who really took them?" Kane's eyes narrowed. "You're saying you know. I know many things, including why someone wants war between your people and mine. War benefits those who profit from chaos." The accusation struck home. Kane's face showed confusion, then dawning suspicion. The man was greedy and prejudiced but not stupid. He understood profit motives better than racial hatred. What are you saying? I'm saying the railroad needs tribal lands. War makes acquisition easier. Stolen cattle blamed on Indians makes war more likely. Perhaps you should ask who benefits from the crimes committed in my people's name. Rain began falling in earnest. Fat drops that turned dust to mud and made rifles harder to aim. The storm provided cover for thoughts Kane didn't want his men to hear. You got proof of this? Tala's silence stretched long enough to become its own answer. The proof had burned in Eagle's Rest Canyon. The evidence that could have prevented war now existed only in memory and ash. Then we got nothing more to talk about. Kane reined his horse aside. But McGraw, don't think this is finished. Questions got asked. They need answering. The patrol rode away into gathering darkness. Their departure left Callum's group alone on the muddy road with rain washing away the last hope of peaceful resolution. At the ranch, they gathered in the kitchen while storm winds rattled the windows. Finn sat close to Tala, unconsciously claiming the place beside her that belonged to family. The boy's devotion had grown beyond childish infatuation into something deeper and more permanent. I won't let them take you away, he told her. Tala's hand found his hair, stroking it with the gentleness she might show her own child. Sometimes people we love have to go away, even when we don't want them to. Not you. You're my family now. Pa says family sticks together no matter what. Chief Red Hawk watched the exchange with eyes that held understanding deeper than words. His daughter had found something in this house that she had never known in tribal life. A boy who loved her without agenda. A man who protected her without expecting reward. A place where her worth didn't depend on political marriages or diplomatic necessity. 3 days, the chief said quietly. Standing Bear's deadline expires in 3 days. Without evidence of his betrayal, both tribes will assume settlers kidnapped Tala. War becomes inevitable. Outside, lightning split the sky. Thunder followed, shaking the house on its foundations. The storm matched the chaos approaching their lives, bringing change that would reshape everything they had built together. Finn looked up from Tala's embrace. Rain streaked the windows behind him, distorting the world beyond recognition. Then we'll find another way, he said with the absolute certainty of childhood. We're family. Families don't give up. The words carried more hope than the evidence supported. But in the lamplight of Sarah's kitchen, surrounded by people who had chosen each other against all reasonable odds, hope felt stronger than facts. The 3rd day arrived with a stillness that pressed against the earth. No wind stirred the grass. No birds sang in the cottonwoods. Even the cattle stood motionless as carved figures against the morning sky. Standing Bear's deadline had come. Callum watched from his porch as dust clouds rose from 3 directions. The Crow War party approached from the east, painted for battle and singing death songs that carried across the valley floor. Kane's enlarged militia rode from the south, rifles glinting in the harsh sunlight. Chief Red Hawk's warriors descended from the northern hills, moving with the controlled precision of men who had accepted their fate, all converging on the McGraw Ranch, all convinced that justice lay in their hands alone. Tala stood in the doorway behind him. She had braided her hair with the silver ornaments of her station, preparing to meet whatever came with the dignity of her bloodline. Her injured leg no longer showed weakness. 3 days of Callum's care and Finn's devotion had healed more than torn flesh. I should surrender myself, she said quietly. Prevent the bloodshed. That won't stop anything now. Too much anger has built up. Too many people want this fight. Finn emerged from the house carrying something wrapped in oilcloth. The boy's face showed the solemn determination that had marked him since his mother's death. He had learned early that loss came without warning, and that holding tight to what mattered required constant vigilance. Pa, I got something. He unwrapped a document bearing railroad letterhead and multiple signatures. The paper showed creases from careful folding and the brown stains of long concealment, but the words remained clear enough to read, clear enough to damn. "Where did you get this?" "Found it in the canyon. When the shooting started, I grabbed what I could and stuffed it in my coat. Figured it might be important." Callum stared at his son with wonder and pride warring in his chest. While grown men fought and schemed and burned evidence, a 10-year-old boy had quietly saved the one document that could prevent war. The paper detailed payments to Standing Bear dating back 6 months. It outlined plans for railroad construction through sacred burial grounds. Most damaging of all, it named Kane as the local coordinator responsible for creating incidents that would justify military intervention. "This changes everything," Chief Red Hawk said, "if we can get them to listen long enough to read it." The approaching dust clouds had resolved into distinct groups of armed men. Standing Bear rode at the head of his war party, wearing the ceremonial headdress that marked him as a war chief. His face bore paint that proclaimed his intentions to anyone who understood tribal customs. Kane's militia had swollen to nearly 30 men, settlers from across the territory who had ridden to defend what they saw as civilized order against savage chaos. Their faces showed the grim satisfaction of men convinced they fought for righteous cause. Chief Red Hawk's warriors numbered fewer, but moved with the coordination of men who had fought together for decades. They took positions that commanded the high ground while leaving escape routes open. Tactical thinking that spoke of battles won through patience rather than rage. The three forces formed a rough triangle with the McGraw Ranch at its center, close enough that voices would carry, close enough that any sudden movement would trigger catastrophe. Standing Bear spoke first. His words rang across the valley in the formal cadences of challenge and ultimatum. "Chief, Red Hawk harbors my promised bride among white settlers. This insult demands blood payment." Kane answered with equal formality. "McGraw has betrayed his own people by conspiring with Indian raiders. Justice demands punishment." Chief Red Hawk remained silent. His presence spoke louder than words. A father protecting his daughter and honoring his alliance with the white man who had shown her mercy. Callum stepped off his porch. The document rested in his hands, but he made no move to display it yet. First, these men needed to understand what their anger would cost. "You all came here looking for war, looking for someone to blame for cattle theft and broken promises and fear that keeps you awake at night. You want to settle things with blood because talking seems too hard." His voice carried across the still air. No man moved or spoke. The moment balanced on the edge of violence or revelation. "But what if I told you the real thief stands among you? What if the man stirring up hatred between neighbors has been paid railroad money to do exactly that?" Kane's face darkened. His horse stepped forward without conscious command. "McGraw, you're talking yourself into a hanging. Maybe, or maybe I'm talking us all away from one." Callum held up the document. Sunlight made the paper glow against the dark promise of gathering storm clouds. "This here's a contract. Payment records showing who really benefits from war between settlers and tribes." Standing Bear's war paint couldn't hide the sudden tension in his jaw. His hand moved toward his tomahawk, but stopped when Chief Red Hawk's rifle shifted slightly in his direction. "Kane's been working with railroad men, stealing cattle and blaming tribes to justify military action. Standing Bear's been selling sacred land for white man's gold, both of them getting rich while the rest of us prepare to die for their lies." The accusation hung in the still air. Kane's militia looked at their leader with new uncertainty. Standing Bear's warriors began backing their horses away from their war chief. The pyramid of trust that supported both groups cracked under the weight of revelation. "You got no proof of that," Kane snarled. Finn stepped forward. The boy walked between armed men with the fearless certainty of childhood innocence. He carried the document like a sacred relic. "I got proof. Saved it when the bad men tried to burn everything in the canyon. Got your name right here, Mr. Kane. Got Standing Bear's too. Got dollar amounts and dates and everything." Standing Bear's hand closed on his tomahawk. His painted face twisted with the desperation of a man whose world was collapsing. But Chief Red Hawk's warriors had seen enough. They turned their weapons toward their former war chief instead of the settlers they had come to fight. Cain made his own desperate move. His rifle swung toward Finn, but Tala was already in motion. She knocked the boy aside as the shot split the morning silence. The bullet meant for an innocent child struck empty air. The spell broke. Cain's militia scattered as they realized their leader had tried to murder a 10-year-old boy. Standing Bear found himself surrounded by his own warriors, who had heard enough truth to understand their betrayal. Territorial Marshal Davis rode into the chaos with 6 federal deputies. Chief Red Hawk had sent word days earlier, requesting official witnesses to whatever truth emerged. The lawman took custody of Cain and the document that detailed his crimes. Standing Bear tried to flee, but his own warriors blocked his path. Exile would be his punishment, banishment from the people he had sold for railroad gold. The confrontation that should have started a war ended with handshakes and hard-won understanding. Not friendship, perhaps, but the recognition that survival required cooperation instead of conquest. 6 months later, Callum worked alongside Tala in the garden behind their house. The bear traps that had once protected his property lay rusting in the barn, no longer needed. Trust had replaced fear as the valley's defining emotion. Finn raced between the rows of corn, speaking a mixture of English and Lakota that marked him as truly belonging to both worlds. Chief Red Hawk visited weekly, delighting in his grandson's progress and his daughter's happiness. The railroad still wanted tribal lands, but now they faced united opposition from settlers and tribes who had learned to see each other as neighbors instead of enemies. Some victories were won with bullets. Others were won with the quiet courage of people who chose understanding over hatred. The setting sun painted the mountains in shades of gold and possibility. Callum watched his unlikely family work the land they had all chosen to call home. Some families were born. Others were forged in the crucible of shared struggle and mutual respect. The bear trap that had brought them together now served as a reminder, not of danger avoided, but of the moment when strangers became allies and allies became family. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.